Hi everyone. For this next video I have got to engrave a vase for a client. So it's quite a big one, it's quite heavy, it's quite quite contemporary in shape. And here we have some sandblasting I've already done on the front, just very simple details. It is obviously a silver wedding anniversary, that's right. It's a gift from the husband to the wife. And now I have sketched some very simple flowers on the front, sort of little roses if you like, and a few leaves. And I have, oops, oh my goodness, drawn some of the leaves in red. And those will be on the upper surface. In other words, they will be in front of the flowers. Oh, there's a challenge. It's not really a challenge. You've just got to have a different approach because, let me put that down. Because if you engrave the flower deeper, that means that the leaves that you are going to be putting in front of the flower need to be even deeper than the flower. And there's a real risk of the leaves looking as though they are about 3 mil thick, which is a very, very thick leaf, you know, more like a succulent, whereas they really do need to look very thin. So the challenge is quite tricky. Let's get on and see how to do it. So in my drill I have got a little blue stone. You can use a pink stone, a brown stone, a white stone. Don't worry about the colour too much. I've just like to go for a half-tone shallow bit of engraving to do the outlines. Now if you watch carefully you will see that I sort of play around a little bit. Obviously my sketch is extremely rough. The stonework is going to be not quite as rough but still pretty rough. I take my time, I add bits and pieces where I feel like they should be, and I change things. Like I've just changed the shape of that leaf to a slightly bendy one. And of course, after we've cleaned it off, we can add whatever we like. I may be adding quite a lot more to the entire design after I have finished, but I don't know yet. There is a limit, a limited budget with this vase, obviously, so I can't go completely to town, although quite frankly I'd love to. Anyway, plodding on, I'm simply outlining whatever I see, plus or minus a little bit of difference. Now you will notice I haven't done the little red leaves as yet, so now I am going to add those in. This little leaf is coming down, downwards over the rose, and there's another one over the top of the bottom rose as well. I'm using a Dura White here just to have an alternative to the simple outline, and that'll make them stand out a little bit more obviously. Just something different. You don't have to do this at all. It's just the way I'm doing it, and it'll help you guys see what's going on, because it does look a little bit of a mess at the moment. So now I've got some water and a little soft cloth, gently cleaning off that waxy pencil. You can see it is quite tough, which is a good thing, because you could go, if you're outlining something and you want to go diving straight in with a diamond and water, you've got a fair amount of time to work with it before it starts to lift off the glass. But for this, I could have done it with a pen. I just decided to do it with the white pencil because it showed up better on the video. Right, so now you can see much clearer what is going on. The camera is at an interesting angle because this is such a large vase. I'm not lying it down flat. I've got it sort of propped up on my little stand, and therefore it is at quite an angle, as opposed to lying more flat. Right, I paused for a moment to grab my mask because I haven't got the dust extractor on, and I just decided to do it without that. And though we're using a hang of a lot of water, so it is reduced to a wet slurry rather than a fine dust. And as you know, keeps the diamonds lovely and fresh for much longer, and produces a really nice cut. Now, if someone can tell me why my camera decides it's going to go disco lights, I have gone into a strange bluey hue now. I have no idea why. It is just the most bizarre thing that happens. And yeah, anyway, I think it does turn back into a more natural yellowy colour. Having said that, my light bulb now is a halogen one, which is quite bluey, quite bright. But why the camera changes the hue like this, I don't know. And I could change it back manually, but I really can't be bothered. There's enough to do on this editing program without playing with that as well. Okay, so I have got a largish diamond in the drill, and I am creating the petals of my flowers. Now, I'm flicking from out to in, but as you can see, this bottom petal is coming upwards towards us, so it's a slightly different shape. Very sort of rounded and sort of ballooning towards us. Not quite so convincing at the moment, but you will see later on once I start shading it. Now you can, of course, smooth these petals out with something like a green stone or a pink stone or a blue stone without making them go too dark. So you really would need to use probably a green stone, actually, because it's not going to be as smoothing as another stone, because you want it to remain white. But I have got these streaks going on because that is just something that I enjoy doing. It helps to show the movement of the petal, in other words, the flow of the petal, even though these petals may not have such heavy grooves in them like I've given them. I've just noticed we're going disco yellow again. Who knows? So plodding along, I've just pointed out next to it, to the right of that petal, is one of the leaves that was red outlined. So I'm going to be gently going behind it. I want the petal to remain, there we are, yes, we've already seen it. I want the petal to remain white and the leaf to ultimately be darker, even though all the other leaves will be probably fairly lightish, but it'll just be a contrast. So what I actually did there was not go very deep. And here again, I'm back to an upward turning front petal. And in actual fact, I'm going fairly deep at the bottom of the petal, the base of the petal, but I don't really need to do that. I'm just going to make my life a little bit tricky for myself. That really needed to be shallow and more deep in the middle of the petal. I'm probably not explaining myself very well, but as you get on with engraving, you will understand. So just going around and gently, flowingly filling all the petals, leaving the middle bit empty. Now there's another little petal there. So where the petal is, I'm not going very deep. Now, there are several ways of doing this. I'm just doing this this way for you guys. I don't know whether it's more complicated or not. But if you were to engrave the entire petal first, without being too deep, then you can actually take your Dura White, formerly the white Arkansas as I called it, and engraved over the top and still produce that effect. But I just wanted to make it stand out because it's from the original drawing. Had I engraved the entire rose without going around that petal, without that petal being there, I would have obliterated it. So if you're not that confident in drawing, that petal would have disappeared. So this way, the petal remains there from the original drawing. I think some of these petals, did I say petal? I meant leaf remains there from the original drawing. And so what I was going to say next is some of these petals, I think, in fact, were leaves. And I've just redesigned a couple of the flowers. But you know what? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So what I've done is actually on the outside of the petals, as I do with most of my flowers, I go deeper on the outside and pulling into very shallow near the middle, because that'll make everything easier to polish and half tone. What I don't need to do, again, you see that petal leaning forward. I didn't need to do the base of it that thick. That was a bit silly. It needed to be shallow. So this rose at the bottom is hanging down. Just something different. Give it a good wipe. So back to the Dura White. I just noticed that I just wanted to put in the leaf stem just there, and add another leaf, I see, just for the hell of it. Right, so now I've got a pink stone. You can use, whatever stone. It's just a stone that is smoother than the diamond, and I am joining it all together. I don't want to see any blank areas in the middle. It's a lovely way of joining it together. And because the top of the petals are a little bit deeper, they automatically don't soften as much because there is an edge there, and it's easier to make the inner part of the flower slightly darker. There you can see the leaf appearing. Well, both of the leaves appearing. There's another one further down. There you can see that I used a sort of almost a scribbling action with the pink on that previous rose, and that really was smoothing it. I'm not pressing hard, and the drill is not going that fast, and this way you can really easily smooth an area out. Here's a very old rubber. I used it in the previous video. I turned it over in the previous video to use what was left of the back end of it and got a little bit of use out of it, but now it is definitely time to put a new rubber on. This is a softer grey rubber. So what you really need to avoid is any kind of speed. It's just got to go very slowly, and it's hard to demonstrate how slow it's going. But if you go too fast, the whole thing will wibble wobble and probably be permanently damaged, and goodness knows what it may do to your drill. Anyway, so going very slowly, and as you can see with the stonework, it is very, very easily polishing it darker, or polishing it smoother, which means that the light's going to pass through it. You'll notice I'm not doing anything with the leaves at the moment. The leaves will be later on. A tiny bit of shading on the underside of the petal that's lifting upwards. So there are two leaves on the top of that rose, but I don't like the second leaf. You can barely see it, and it's really at a weird angle, so I may obliterate that leaf completely and do something else there. here we have a black rubber disc, and this will pick up the upper surface where there is a ridge. It will not go into the ridge, so you can see the top of the petals are still remaining pretty sharp, but it is just slightly smoothing out a little bit more the already smoother areas, the darker areas, and I'm just flicking on the gaps between the petals as well to define them a little more. It may look big and clumsy, but it is picking up the ridges, so you've got to be careful where you put it. I mean, if you really wanted this to be a that's I put my teeth back in, variegated leaf, for example, well, variegated petal, and you know, if you go slightly deeper with your diamond in the first place, you will easily be able to run it over the ridges and create these panels of color, or shade if you like. So here I have a little diamond in the drill, a very nice fresh diamond, or quite fresh, and I'm working dry with it, and just sort of defining the tips of the petals. So that rose is hanging downwards. This one I have got to fix because I'm not sure which rose that petal belongs to at the moment. It's supposed to belong to the top one, but it's kind of looking like it's belonging to the bottom one, which is not right. And I will fix that, don't worry. Working dry with a nice fresh diamond will give a slightly brighter look, a slightly rougher and brighter look, without looking nasty. Certainly not any chips or anything, because this surface is already well broken, and this is a fresh diamond, so it just roughs it up a little bit more, so you can easily create highlights. Flicking downwards, as you can see, so near the base there's hardly any depth, where there is a fair amount of depth higher up. Now you can see I'm around that leaf again, and I want the petal to remain bright so that the leaf will stand out. Could also, once I've done the leaf, I mean, you can create shadows. It's easier if you've got a bigger area of engraving rather than these tiny little flowers. But you can create the shadows where the leaves are overhanging the flowers underneath, and that really does make them look like they're floating on top. So we may well do that. Well, this brings us to the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.